Welcome to this episode of YouTube where I've entitled it Summer Enrichments and Behaviors Stimulated. And the first behavior that's obviously stimulated is scent marking. And this enrichment is alpaca hair that was donated to us by Christina Rizzo from the Bramble Park Zoo. And anytime we get other animal hair that we do freeze it for 2 weeks to make sure that we kill any ectoparasites or any issues with it. But the behaviors that are stimulated are marking behaviors, also plucking behaviors, behaviors that will allow them to pull or pluck at things. We also used stimuli of snow that we saved from last winter. We bagged it up and we brought it out and we poured a little bit of stimuli. Sometimes it was tuna juice. I actually even used pickle juice and vinegar. Something, it's like a big snow cone and something to give them stimuli to investigate. And these enrichments go on again from June 15th to August 15th during the peak of our summer season. It allows visitors to obviously see wolves kind of at a predictable time. This is typically done at noon. And it also allows wolf care staff to get a look at the wolves when they'd normally be down. And this brings them to the front of the exhibit and we can get a look at how they're dealing with warmer temperatures and issues. And you notice Bolts in this clip here. Bolts has had a phobia with bees over the last couple of years. And his anxiety about bees creates a situation where he moves up to the top of the enclosure and can isolate himself. And so by bringing him down towards the front, we make sure that he stays kind of in the social group of the wolves and not be ostracized when he kind of comes out of the woods. So you can see bees are an issue for everybody. Bolts is the only one who's probably been stung and has some negative conditioning. So that last enrichment was a pail of sand with deer hooves, and now you're seeing, actually I believe a pig's ear. Now you're seeing deer hooves in a gelatin mix. We do use Knox gelatin. Is something that we add to the pups' nutritional supplements when they're young. It goes into their formula to help with arginine protein, but also Knox gelatin has some other benefits. It helps digestion. It has amino acids that really have some other health benefits, especially anti-inflammatory, some support of tendons, ligaments, certainly things like Aiden would need here as an older animal. So that was an important thing. We also know that eggs can sometimes be important. We did demonstrate the difference between a raw egg and a hard-boiled egg, and it's kind of interesting here. We had a question posed to us: do they eat the eggshells? And it appears that Aiden does break apart or takes the eggshells off, and Aiden must have also read about cholesterol because he drops the yolk and lets the younger wolf eats the yolk, and he proceeds to eat just the egg whites. So maybe he understands something a little bit about nutrition that we don't. But that was a hard-boiled egg. We did a multiple number of hard-boiled eggs, and then it had one raw egg, and they did seem to like the raw egg better. So something that we don't do on their diet every day. Like I said, these are enrichments. These are things to stimulate them, things that are a little bit different. The other thing I wanted to mention is that a lot of the suggestions came from people who have participated in a program called Pups at 1 Year. And we also asked their advice. If you were a visitor here, what might be an enrichment that you think would be stimulating to the wolves? Our only parameter is that it has to be safe delivery and it can't be anything that harms them. So after a lot of research, we had some recommendations, and that's kind of what you're seeing. Is this is a compilation video of all those recommendations. So one thing we do is we have a delivery system for the summer educators who are not wolf care staff. They can open up a window and they can be able to provide the enrichment without wolf care staff being on site, which is important. And it's very important when it comes to later in the season when we have maybe a little bit of tension going on and we want to distract. We want to be able to have a positive way to do that. And so this happens to be bones with bone marrow. And there's Bolts, who's having some issues with flies and just overall more nervous. He comes up and he actually gets a treat for participating. This is all stimulated by the sound of a chimes to actually get them up to be able to come to the window. And that was something the wolf ethology class did in the 2013 summer, is they did the conditioning, the positive conditioning, to allow them to respond to the chimes. So in other words, you have to give them some kind of reward to the sound. Anyone who's followed Pavlov's work understand. You ring a bell, they salivate. Here, you ring the chimes, they run to the window. And that's a good conditioning for us if we need to distract wolves, or if we need to, in this case, get a good look at the wolves during a time when they normally wouldn't be up. But we also know, because we're getting them up in the summer, that that's warm. These wolves are covered with hair and not sweat glands, and so when we do get them up, there are times on a real hot day where we might get them up and get them into the water. So oranges are a great way to get them stimulated to come in the water, so we can toss them very easily. And once they're in the water, the wolves want to swim for them, so they'll go into the water and they'll try to get them. So it's easy for them to mouth or to grab, and so mouthing behavior is real common. Obviously, wading. We see a lot of critical thought process going into how to get into the water. In some cases, some wolves don't like to get wet, so they wait for the younger wolves to take things out. But once they get them on land, out of the water, the citrus is a different taste to them, so you can see them investigate, sniff, and oftentimes sneeze, and then that's going to stimulate scent rolling. That's another behavior that we see, and this is Denali, who didn't bother to go into the water to get them, but that doesn't mean that he can't enjoy them once they're on land. So scent rolling is one of those behaviors that oftentimes ethologists think might have a multitude of reasonings. They may roll on something to mark it as their own, but others believe that they may mark or get the scent on them so that they can bring it back to their fellow pack members. So in other words, they encountered something that was foreign within their territory, that was not a common thing, and they're going to roll on it, and that scent rolling smell is going to carry with them when they go back to join their pack. And that's a theory, again, till wolves talk and tell us what they're really doing. Those are theories as to why they may scent roll. So this again is one of the yearlings, so it's not age specific. This seems to be an innate behavior. Nobody taught them how to roll. They've been scent rolling since they were young. This is Grayson, again a yearling, and that was Denali, the one prior, at a 9-year-old. There's no age about rolling. The pups would scent roll, I think, as young as probably 6 weeks, where they'd start their first scent roll. So that was very enticing, and like I said, the idea is to get them wet. When it's hot, let's get them in the water. But a secondary bonus, especially for these young wolves are curious, and oftentimes curiosity can lead to investigating things, or into some extent damaging things like tree branches, or anything that we hold sacred within the enclosure. They seem to know, and they try to go after it. So it gives them something to focus on other than, like I said, some of the vegetation where they might be pulling or tearing, but it also gives them the opportunity to process. So when you look at them, you can see that they're trying to problem solve. Some wolves are more comfortable with water than others. Some are, they're assessing their circumstance and trying to figure out how to get what they want, how to get that object. In this case, it's an orange in the pond. So it's very easy for us to deliver. That's a protocol. Hope for us is that the enrichment needs to be something that's easy for the staff to deliver, that's not invasive, that's not damaging, and not obviously causing a lot of aggression. Also, we want to avoid food. We certainly don't want to manipulate the wolves' diet to the point where we're giving them food treats. We know they come to food treats, but we want to watch their diet. The other thing we want to make sure of, like I say, is that we can get bolts down and comfortable and relaxed. Now, bolts doesn't always act like that with flies. I mean, it's only when the flies are out. So when they're not out, he's a pack member who is, with the rest of the social group, relaxing like they are. But we do know that we have some issues. And so that phobia has been something that we're kind of working on. One of the participants, Leslie Brown, willingly donated some bubbles. And these are dog-approved bubbles, meaning that they're made for dogs, and they're peanut butter flavored or bacon flavored. And so if you look closely on this video clip, Axel's got a bloody nose, and that's from the deer that they were feeding on. So one thing we know is Sundays are very, very difficult to get the wolves down because they've gorged, they've eaten a large quantity of meat, and it's really hard to get them out to the public. So we needed something very stimulating to be able to get them down. The other bonus is that we wanted to have something that was positive flying around Boltz's head, not just bees, but these bubbles that taste like bacon. And so this is the window. This is a bubble machine which produces a higher volume of bubbles, but that gives that opportunity to have things in the air that have a positive experience. So we'll be working more with bolts and trying to see if we can overcome some of that phobia. So those are some of the enrichment things. At this point, then we're switching to some more scent-based things. You saw them obviously sentinel on the orange. We do things like fox urine. We might do castor oil. We tried the fresh grass idea. I do weed eat the front of the exhibit, and that's me weed eating. Typically I try not to do it in the rain, but the weed eating is important for bolts. If I can keep the vegetation trimmed, I have less bug problems for him. So the first thing that Aiden does when I weed eat fresh green grass is to mark it, raise like urinated in it, and then they may scent roll, and we oftentimes see green faces after I weed eat. We have conditioned all the wolves to be tolerant of the weed eater. That means that we when they're young pups, we run it. We let them kind of play and not play with the equipment, but just play around it so they hear that sound and it doesn't freak them out. A majority of my work in wolf care is facilities maintenance, so I want to make sure that they are comfortable with those kind of noises around the facility. And then last, Nitty Good had sent us some aroma scents, and I want to share with you the benefit of peppermint. Aiden, not only did he scent roll in it, but Aiden used that benefit of peppermint to be relaxing, and actually I believe he lied on that scent area for about 10 or 15 minutes after he was done scent rolling and just kind of taking in that smell of peppermint, and so maybe there's some benefit to that. We also see the Arctics here. That same day I rolled a cauliflower in. Somebody gave me a cauliflower. We thought they'd like just roll it around. Well, it turns out the Arctics ate it. So I guess I have to question a little bit about the food issue. I didn't think they'd eat cauliflower, but they're young. They'll eat just about anything. That's why we have to be cautious about their care. So like I said, I want to end here with Aiden having a great time in that peppermint. And I also wanted to take the time to give a big thank you. Goes out to all the kind people who have designated the International Wolf Center in the Workplace United Way campaigns. This is a time of the year where many campaigns happen, so we hope to merit your trust and support again this year. At this time, we don't receive general funds from the United Way, but thankfully, many write us or designate their donation to us, and that helps fuel our efforts to teach the world about wolves. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.